Western Ag Network on the road at the American Sheep Industry Association Annual Convention in Scottsdale, Arizona. Brought to you by the American Lamb Board.
Well, the American Sheep Industry Association's annual convention is truly the U.S. sheep industry's largest gathering each year. And this year wasn't any different here in Scottsdale, Arizona. And we want to thank our friends at the American Lamb Board for sponsoring our coverage this year. You know, some of this year's Lamb Checkoff funded programs include workshops and summits aimed at equipping sheep producers with the necessary tools and resources to profitably grow their operations. You can learn more about them by visiting lambboard.com. Well, like others in agriculture, the American Sheep Industry Association hopes that 2025 brings new opportunities and profitability to the entire U.S. sheep industry. Now joining us now is the president of the American Sheep Industry Association and Wyoming rancher Brad Boner. It is a big week, and you're kind of maybe in the home stretch of your presidency of ASI as you kind of start year number 2. How's year number 1 been?
Yeah, it's been good, full of lots of stuff going on, and you know, never a dull moment. Lots of reasons to get out of bed in the morning. So what more could we ask for? So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, there is always something going on in production agriculture. Kind of keeps industry organizations like ASI moving and a shaking. But like others, I mean, holy cow, or maybe I should say holy sheep in this deal. We're hoping for a new farm bill. I mean, let's talk about why the farm bill for the sheep industry is even more important this year than it's been in years past.
yeah, well, it's always been an important piece of what we do. You know, the wool manufacturers and apparel trust fund is in an orphan program in the farm bill, and a major funding source for ASI, and so that's always important. Plus, you know, a lot of our ag initiatives, the damage payments, you know, the disaster payments, all that stuff is all important to our producers. And so Farm Bill is a really big piece of what we all look forward to. And unfortunately, we've had 2 extensions now, and really hope that this year brings us the you know, extension, or not, the passing of a 4-year Farm Bill, so we don't have to worry about it for a while. So.
Well, one thing that did happen in the past year, we had a presidential election. There's going to be a change of powers to be, so to speak, here in just a few days. A new or a second term of the Trump administration headed back to the White House. There's a lot of optimism within the U.S. sheep industry with that.
Yeah, I think, you know, the past administration, especially in the last couple of years, was real aggressive in especially our federal lands, and some of the things they were doing there, really not working with agriculture well at all, and so it'll be helpful to get a little different take, and maybe someone a little more ag friendly in there, and someone that maybe isn't so willing to have a government overreach taking place at the drop of a pin, basically. And so yeah, we're looking forward to that. See what it brings. As we talked about today in our meeting, you know, every new administration brings its own stresses because it's chaos back there right now, right? Or even more chaos than it is normally, which it always is. So you know, the change causes a little bit of anxiety for everybody, but it'll all be good, and it'll all sort out here eventually, and away we go again. So.
Yeah, you know, these past few years, it's kind of been a tough go out there in the countryside. You know, lamb prices have fallen off.
Yeah.
The wool market has basically been in the tank. I mean, since pre-COVID. But I mean, the lamb market did come back a little bit
Yep.
as we kind of wrapped up 2024. And
We did.
boy, and talking to some of those wool buyers, like Larry Prager with Center of the Nation Wool from our home country up there in Wyoming, the Dakotas, and Montana and Colorado. I mean, he's saying maybe we could get this wool market moving and shaking again here this year.
Yeah, there seems to be a little undercurrent there, and I don't think anything earth-shattering, but it's at least on the positive side, which is a big step, right? At least we're not being negative. We're on the positive side, so that's all good. And the land market, there seems to be some good demand there right now, and you know, I think you know, the consumer on both the lamb and wool side has been really pulling in their horns and not spending as much money because, like it or not, I think we were in a recession. I think we all believe that now the last 2 or 3 years, and the consumer was just spending their money way more conservatively than they had in the past. And so I think we're seeing a little bit more. We're starting to come out of that a little bit and look forward to better times ahead.
Any other big priorities for ASI as you kind of map out this year and beyond?
And, the H2A policies are always important, especially in the Western U.S. We're seeing some positive signs with in the sheep industry with some growth, with some solar grazing, and granted that's a double-edged sword, and ASI doesn't want to get involved in whether solar is a good or bad thing. But if we're going to do solar, we feel strongly we should have sheep grazing underneath it. So that's kind of where we land on that, and so that's at least a positive thing. We've seen some growth there, some new members. We've got about 15% of our registers this year are first-time attendees to the convention. So that's kind of an interesting thing that doesn't happen all the time. So it's all good.
Hey, speaking of the election back in November, I mean, another positive thing that came out of it was, there was a lot of worried people out there in the countryside, watching what that vote in Colorado was going to be, what was going to do. Denver, more specifically, if they were going to ban meat processing facilities within the city limits down there, and how that could set a very dangerous precedent. I mean, now that we know how the vote went, they voted it down. I mean, how lucky are we, or how grateful should we be?
Yeah, it was a big deal, and got to have a shout out to the whole livestock industry who really participated in that fight. Sometimes we don't all get together like we should, and under that initiative, everybody was rowing in the same direction. Everybody participated. Everybody helped fund it. So a big shout out to the entire livestock industry, because it was just a Herculean effort to do that. And the goal was at the end of the day to put that down pretty severely, and hopefully deter them from doing it again. And they went to the most liberal place in the West, in Denver, Colorado, and still lost 66% to 34%. So I think it was a good effort, and again, the livestock industry really stepped up, and a lot of people worked hard on that, and so good result.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just wrap up, because I mean, it's just a great example of, sometimes out there in the country, rural America, we feel like our voice doesn't matter, our vote doesn't matter. But when we actually pull ourselves together and we speak with a united voice, and we're not bickering and complaining and fighting amongst ourselves, we can really do some amazing things, right?
Amazing things when we work together, and by design or by our lot in life, but by being attracted to this business, we're a little bit independent, all of us, because you gotta be a little independent to work in in these livestock industries, but so yeah, we have some good discussions sometimes, but we really can, when we work together. They have a really hard time getting in our way and stopping it. And I think it's just good to remember that, and some of the things we disagree about don't really mean a whole lot at the end of the day, and some of them, when we have these big wins, they mean a lot. So
Absolutely. We'll leave it at that. Hey, thanks for stopping
Yeah,
by and
thanks.
inviting us down here to Scottsdale to be part of your
Thanks for being
convention
here.
this year.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Absolutely. Again, we've been talking with Brad Boner, ASI President and Wyoming rancher, here in Scottsdale, Arizona, at the 2025 American Sheep Industry Association's annual convention. I mean, we've just covered just a little bit about what ASI is doing every single day on your behalf. For more information, you can always jump online and visit them at sheepusa.org.
The American Lamb Board wants 2025 to be the best year yet for education. Lamb Checkoff funded programs include workshops and summits aimed at equipping sheep producers with the necessary tools and resources to profitably grow their operations. Like the American Lamb Summit, July 22nd through 25th, University of Idaho in Moscow. Event highlights include defining lamb quality and hitting carcass targets and increasing production efficiency. Learn more and register at lambboard.com.
Well, this week here at the American Sheep Industry Association's annual convention in Scottsdale, Arizona, It's a busy time for U.S. sheep producers and attendees, and one of the many committees meeting this week is the Wool Council. And joining us now is the ASI Region 5 Director, Rodney Kott from Texas now, but of course, an old friend and a familiar face for folks back home in Western Ag Network country, retired Montana State University sheep extension specialist. And Rodney, let's talk about some of the doings this week in your Wool Council,
Okay,
because
you bet. First of all, hi to a lot of friends in Montana. I kind of miss those friendships, and they're great. Uh, as many of you know, especially the producers, the wool market has been pretty touchy with a lot of things. A lot of people aren't moving wool and so forth. We've got a strong dollar, and that's hurting it. So the council a year ago commissioned a they call it a stress test. It's just a review of the industry and where are the short spots or where are the narrow spots that we're in trouble, or if we get stressed, where will we be? So we had a big discussion about that stress test. We have right now one worsted processor, first stage processor, which means scouring the top, and we have one woolen, which is the coarser wool one. So both of those have not invested a lot of money in new equipment, so they're not really as efficient. So as an industry, we're kind of looking at where are those stresses, and then probably the harder question is how do we fix them? What happens if one of them breaks down and we only have one? And we got the military contract, that's still our bread and butter, but if we get the buy in the military, will not circumvent the Berry Amendment that requires it to use U.S. wool.
so what was kind of the roadmap discussed down here in Scottsdale, with some of those stressors or challenges? Because it has been a tough go. I mean,
Yep.
since COVID, this wool market has just been hardly nothing.
It's been tough, and probably the biggest thing is the U.S. dollar. We're very strong, so we're get pretty in competitive. I don't I don't know that we have a roadmap yet. I think we have. This first step was just to identify the constriction points or where we got a problem. So the big discussion today is where do we go and how do we address that? You're talking probably 40, 50, 60 million dollars, maybe 80 million dollars to build a new scouring train or total plant. So where do we go? What do we do? 60% of our wool that goes into the military, 40% probably a lot of other stuff is exported, so we do export a lot of wool. But for the military contract, because of the Berry Amendment, it's got to be used and processed. Then the other part of that is a new fledgling part of our industry is like the Duckworth stuff where they advertise and those fishhook socks, U.S. made, U.S. wool, ranch to feet, and that's really caught on, and that processing part is part of our requirement for that part of the industry.
For wool growers out there, I mean, they're still raising some, if not the highest quality wool in the entire world. And how lucky are they, even though we do have a down market right now, that we have an association like ASI, that we have a dedicated committee, the Wool Council, tackling these tough issues to try to get us over this hump and get us to better times.
You bet. It's not an easy issue. I mean, there's a lot of problems in it, and there's not an easy issue. The Montana people, Montana, South Dakota people have, you know, if you look at what their wool looks like over the last 40 years, I mean, when I came to Montana, and it wasn't me that did it, but the yields were 45 to 50%. Now they're 60%. So they have some of the best wool in the world. Good wool.
Yeah, they really do, and it's because of education. It's about, from state associations to here at the national level, educating wool growers, what they can do better back at the farm gate, right?
Yep. And, I want to make a pitch for the state associations. There's so many things influencing whether we do business that's in addition to feed and sheep. I mean, this political stuff and rules and stuff, and boy, those state associations and national associations are important. Get involved, and they only do what people ask them to do. You know, we had the discussion today. We opened the questions up to the floor for probably 45 minutes for people that just wandered in the room to give their thoughts and ideas. So get involved and get those things rolling.
Well, and lastly, Rodney, I mean, also it's just going to take people, here in this country and around the world just to, you know, get out of the house and dig into their pocketbooks a little bit more and start increasing that spending power and realize,
Yep.
these suit jackets and everything else that are made out of wool that you can get, outerwear, underwear, anything, it's really high quality stuff, and it's not our grandma's wool.
And it is not usually, we don't buy it because it's a cost. We buy something like another t-shirt once and then throw it away next year and buy a new one, and that wool stuff will stay forever, you know.
Now, targeted grazing has been a big topic at this year's ASI convention. And really that's because the rapid development of utility-scale solar farms across the country has stimulated a significant need for sheep grazing as a means of vegetation management.
The sheep has, for us, been a very valuable tool in vegetation management, which is a huge issue in our industry. It's one of our major costs of running an operating solar plant. And utilizing sheep, you can undercut traditional methods of vegetation maintenance by 50% or more. And so I think it's an excellent opportunity from a cost and a value standpoint, but also to kind of work with the community, right? That seems almost alienated as we come in and build these projects.
My old business model was where I'm selling lambs, selling wool, and then between the months of March and like September and October, I was paying for feed. Now I'm being paid for that same feed. So the business model did this. So it's been a game changer. It's actually saved our business. California, as you probably can imagine, is very, very difficult to do business in. Couple that with agriculture. Agriculture the last several years has been really difficult. Commodity prices have been down. It's been hard. It's been a struggle. This is a way to monetize your business in a different way, become a service provider, and stay in business and actually make some money.
In fact, the American Lamb Board is hosting 6 targeted grazing workshops this year across the country to help provide sheep producers a unique chance to learn more about these paid grazing contracts, which offers significant potential for expanding the U.S. sheep flock, along with enhancing the availability and price competitiveness of delicious American lamb. You can learn more and get registered by visiting lambboard.com. Stay with us. We'll be back with more from here at the ASI convention in Scottsdale right after this.
The American Lamb Board wants 2025 to be the best year yet for education. Lamb Checkoff-funded programs include workshops and summits aimed at equipping sheep producers with the necessary tools and resources to profitably grow their operations. This includes 6 targeted grazing workshops on topics like grazing solar farms and sheep grazing contracts in wildfire-prone areas and vineyards. These workshops provide a unique chance to learn about these paid grazing contracts. Learn more at lambboard.com.
Well, the American Lamb Board and Lamb Checkoff dollars continue to do some amazing things for both producers who are investing those Lamb Checkoff dollars and, of course, those consumers out there who are the recipients. And joining us now to talk more about Lamb Checkoff funded activities and everything else going on these days at the American Lamb Board is its chairman, Jeff Ebert from Kansas. And Jeff, the ALB is just one of the many groups meeting this week here in Scottsdale, Arizona, as part of the Sheep Industry Association's annual convention. You guys just wrapped up your annual meeting. Boy, there's just a lot of positive traction out there when it comes to the American Lamb Board and these lamb checkoff dollars.
There is. I mean, we had a very good, informative meeting. We're constantly looking for other ways to promote American lamb. to the consumers, but at the same time help our producers generate more income as well. So we look at all aspects of it, from the education, research, and promotion. We want to spend those checkoff dollars in different ways.
Well, and you and I have visited in the past. I mean, you guys are doing some incredible things with a relatively small pool of money when considered and compared against some of the other commodity groups out there.
Yes, absolutely. I've seen a report that USDA puts out where our $3 million budget compared to beef and swine, but even watermelons and blueberries and strawberries. I mean, we have less checkoff dollars than a lot of commodities. So our staff does an excellent job of managing that money and putting promotion dollars where it needs to be. I mean, whether it's social influencers, chefs, bloggers, whatever it takes to keep the word out about American lamb.
So let's talk about some of those areas of emphasis here in 2025. One that comes to mind are some upcoming targeted grazing workshops.
Yes, we've got 6 different targeted grazing workshops all across the U.S. Scheduled for this coming year, from California to on the East Coast. I believe it was Virginia. But yeah, you can go to the American Lamb Board website and learn more about those. But we started those last year. We had 3 of them that were very successful, and a lot of it's doing with the solar grazing, but it can expand into wineries or vineyards. Or different ways that across the country different producers use for their operation.
Well, and what we're also finding is there's some financial opportunities out there for sheep producers like yourselves through these targeted grazing programs.
Yes. I mean, we got the Smart Climate Grant from USDA, and we just went through a process of taking applications, and we had almost 200 applications for that. We did narrow it down to a little less than 150 because we had to be under that, but we're excited about getting those producers involved. And then not only will it benefit them, but then it'll benefit other producers because we'll have some benchmarks in place.
From the targeted grazing workshops to the American Lamb Summit coming up later this summer in Moscow, Idaho. That's also pretty exciting. It was supposed to be held last year, but you guys fast forwarded it to this year versus last year for a good reason. Talk about why, and then let's get to the summit itself.
Well, one of the reasons we want as many young producers there, and last year with the Lamex in Australia, it just conflicted, so we decided to get on an opposite year of that, so we held it off last year. But yes, it'll be June 22nd through 24th in Moscow, Idaho. We just heard at our meeting earlier today that registration's open. I believe the registration cost is only $150, and there are some subsidies and grants involved, especially for young emerging producers that can get that fee waived.
Boy, this summit is something incredible. I mean, you and I both attended the one a few years ago in Michigan, and boy, it covers just about all facets of the sheep and wool industry, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, the one in Michigan, like you said, I was there. I thought it was probably one of the best conventions, conferences, or whatever you want to call it, that I'd ever attended. And looking at the tentative schedule for this one, the program, I mean, it looks just as exciting, if not more exciting, than one in Michigan.
What's also exciting, Jeff, are the evolution of these lamb jams around the country. Talk about how they came to be and how they're bringing delicious American lamb into the spotlight in some of the biggest cities in America.
Correct. Yeah, we're going to have lamb jams in 7 different U.S. cities spread across the country. Again, from Washington D.C. to San Francisco. Basically, one in every month from the month of March through the fall. And I mean, it's a way to get American lamb out to especially young, maybe foodie type people who pay a small maintenance fee. Different chefs will provide lamb dishes, and then there's a voting that takes place, and whoever has the most popular or gets the most votes at each of those 8 events will actually end up at a final, so to speak. But yeah, it's just a great resurgence. I mean, we used to have these before COVID hit, and then when COVID hit, we're just now bringing them back. But we are very excited to be able to provide these again.
Well, Jeff, we could sit here and literally talk all day about things, but I mean, there is a great resource out there for everything we've talked about and what we haven't, and that's where producers themselves can go, and that's your guys' website, correct? At lambboard.com. I mean, that truly is an industry asset in itself.
Yes, yes. I mean, our website's constantly updated. That was just another thing that we saw at our meeting, you know, that they're adding stuff to it, you know, every week. I mean, those the websites are, you know, you got to keep them fresh. You got to keep them updated, and our staff does a great job of doing that. So.
Well, we appreciate you stopping by and giving us an update on what's going on at the American Lamb Board with these producer checkoff dollars like producers like yourself are investing in. Again, we've been visiting with Jeff Ebert, the American Lamb Board's chairman from Kansas, here at the American Sheep Industry Association's annual convention in Scottsdale, Arizona. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of On the Road from the American Sheep Industry Association's annual convention here in Scottsdale, Arizona. Again, we want to thank our friends at the American Lamb Board for sponsoring our radio, television, and social media coverage from this year's convention. And it's never too early to start making plans to join us next year in Reno, Nevada, January 28th through the 31st. For more information, you can visit sheepusa.org. For the Western Ag Network, I'm Russell Nemetz.
Western Ag Network on the road at the American Sheep Industry Association annual convention in Scottsdale, Arizona. Brought to you by the American Lamb Board.